How does ride height affect performance of a car? So what we're talking about there is, let's say from a static perspective, with the car there in the setup patch is we can lower the front axle or we can lower the rear axle independently. And part of that is adjusting the rake of the car. I'm probably going to try and dig into the mechanical aspects of this rather than go down the rabbit hole talking about aerodynamics, which is a whole different topic. But certainly that's where the rake of the car and that relative front and rear ride height does have a pretty big effect on the performance as well. Well, the two things about adjusting ride height, it sort of ties into my previous answer that I gave as well. Lowering the car is a great thing from the perspective of lowering the center of gravity. So the first thing to understand about car setup is that race tires, or tires in general, are load sensitive, meaning that the more vertical load we add to them, the lower the effective coefficient of friction you get of the tires. Now that's a massive simplification of how a tire actually works, but we can sort of simplify it down into terms of thinking about things of coefficient of friction. So the reason that's important is because when we roll the car into a corner, or when we have lateral load on the car, we're automatically transferring load from the inside tires to the outside tires. The net effect of doing that is a net reduction in the amount of cornering power we've got. We always want to reduce the amount of lateral load transfer. Now, the important thing to understand about car setup is there is no way to reduce the total amount of lateral load transfer, what a lot of people call weight transfer, without modifying something fundamental about the car. So in terms of lateral dynamics anyway, the only aspects you've got are the track width and the center of gravity height, as well as the overall mass of the car. After that, for a given lateral acceleration, there is nothing you can do to the setup that will change the amount of lateral load transfer, the total lateral load transfer across both axles. So obviously, center of gravity height, it's a great thing to be able to lower the car in order to lower that center of gravity height. The downside with that is you've generally got to do some sort of roll center correction as well. So maybe I just need to sketch that out just to make that a little bit clearer, because I know it can be difficult to understand when I'm just talking about this in terms of words. So let's say we've got our chassis here. Now, depending on the suspension kinematics that you've got, that will depend on how we construct this, but essentially let's say we've got our center of gravity placed here. Let's say we've got our wheels mounted out here. Our roll center is some instantaneous point, and the construction of that again depends on the type of suspension you've got, but it is the point that the whole sprung mass or the chassis rolls about. So this is that roll moment that I was trying to describe before. That's our roll moment. What happens is when we lower the car, obviously we're lowering the center of gravity, great thing for weight transfer, the total weight transfer anyway. What we often do in certainly things like double A-arm or multi-link in particular, we usually get a huge amount of roll center movement for a small amount of suspension movement. And that is typical of road cars. It's because we're putting it into a ride height window that the car's not really intended to be running. So what I mean by that is the roll center, let's say we've lowered our car now, let's say we've lowered it, I'm going to draw this in a dotted line, let's say we've lowered it 50 millimeters, 2 inches roughly. What will usually happen, the roll center won't also move down by that amount. Usually in a road car style suspension, it might move a huge amount further down. So now, even though let's say our new center of gravity is down here, this was our old roll moment arm, now our new roll moment arm is this one here. This is exaggerated, but the idea here is that we're ending up with more body roll as a result. So as far as changing, you can absolutely use the front and rear ride height to affect the balance of the car. Just know and it is probably getting a little bit outside the scope of what I have time to talk about in terms of today's webinar. You are lowering the center of gravity, but it's also really important to understand that relationship with the roll centers. So that's one thing I'd definitely be very careful of when I'm lowering or changing the ride height at each end of the car. That question was taken from one of our free live lessons. If you like free stuff and you want to expand your knowledge, click the link in the description to claim your free spot to our next live lesson. You'll learn about optimizing the performance and handling of your car on the racetrack, as well as improving your skills behind the wheel. Plus, you'll have the chance to ask your own questions, which we'll be answering live.